Thank you, everybody, for being with us on session 5 out of 6 of our conversation about burnout, checking in, not checking out series. We're really glad that you chose to be with us this morning. Carrie's going to be talking about preventing burnout today. And also, I believe there will be some tips for kind of thinking about how to address this in organizations. Is that right, Carrie?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
good deal.
Yes.
So, the housekeeping information, I think everybody is aware. We're recording this. There's going to be a breakout. So there's some expectations of interactivity. Materials are being housed on the website at foodsecurity.missouri.edu. And again, the sponsors are Power Up Your Pantry, part of the Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security at MU, and New Chapter Coaching. We have some social media sites. I don't think I need to say much more about that. You've heard about those. Today, Carrie will be talking about preventing burnout and building resilience. And I do want to make sure people know that our sixth and final session will be Tuesday, back on our Tuesday schedule, November 10th, where again, we'll be doing more discussion and things like that. And Carrie, I think this is a good place to hand it back to you. So take
Okay.
it from
All
here.
right. Well, thank you for kicking us off, Bill. It's great to see so many of you that I have come to know your names and gotten to speak with some of you in the breakout rooms during facilitated discussions. And I am happy to be here with you on our last of my presentations. We'll have one more next week with Bill, but just a few quick ground rules, more like suggestions, as Bill has said. Turn on your camera if you're able and are comfortable. I know there are some of you that don't have video or audio, and that's okay too. When we go into breakout rooms, there will be probably about 4 people assigned to a breakout room. So if you're not able to participate by talking, I am sharing a Google Doc today that you can type your answers on, even if you're not able to get into a room. So I'll share that with you soon. It'll be in the chat. And I'll do my best to keep the time in mind as well. You'll get a 1-minute warning when breakout rooms are going to end, but making sure that I know we never have enough time in the breakout rooms, making sure we try to get to the questions and type up responses, especially as we get to that 1-minute reminder mark. And I love it when you all participate and it's not just me. Feel free to put some thoughts in the chat or unmute your mic if you have, especially at the end, some questions. And if you're someone who tends to talk a lot, that maybe is taking a step back and maybe not sharing as much and letting others step up to share more who aren't as tend to share. I tend to be one of the step uppers and have to remind myself to take that pause and step back and give others a chance to contribute. But in these, we tend to need more stepper uppers. So feel free to step up and contribute through the chat, and in your breakout rooms, ask some questions. And reminder that we are recording this, but we do ask that you keep conversations confidential, especially the breakout rooms. Those are not recorded. And I know we all are facing a lot of struggles right now. And this is a place where we want you to feel safe and comfortable sharing. So those are just a few sort of things we wanted to go over before we get started. So you've probably seen me by now. You know that I have a background. I'm Carrie Collier with New Chapter Coaching. I have a background in counseling and coaching. I got really interested in doing stuff with burnout when I was doing counseling and also coaching, working with nonprofits, seeing the burnout, experiencing it myself in another industry, making a switch. I'm really interested in helping people develop their resilience and building their well-being. We do a lot with leadership development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Clifton Strengths, helping employees build their strengths as well. So that's me. New Chapter Coaching is our mission is build a better world by increasing the effectiveness of nonprofit leaders, you all, so that you can impact the organizations and the clients that you serve. We know how important that is, and we're so grateful for the work that all of you do in your communities, because we really do think that nonprofits are the backbone of serving our community and helping our communities. We do presentations like this. I do coaching, leadership roundtables. We've got one coming up in January, consulting on strategic planning, resilience, and succession planning, executive transition management, and then facilitations and trainings like this. So I invite you at any time, if you have any questions after this or are interested in learning more about what we do or think we could help you out in any way, please reach out. You have my contact information. Bill has it as well. I look forward to staying in touch with you all after today and this series as well. So today we're going to do a quick review of the first 2 sessions where we talked about really identifying burnout and starting to address it. And then we're going to talk about today building resilience and some tools you can use, some specific things you can take back individually and for your organization, because I think we need some concrete things that we can do right now. Someone indicated in the chat that one of the things that they do to distress is read more and watch less TV, especially this week. And I know that there's just so much going on in our world. There's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of uncertainty between pandemic, election outcomes, and so much. So I want to acknowledge those things as well as help us recognize the things that we can do to build some resilience. So that's what we'll focus on today. But I always like to start with a question. So in just a second, I'll have Bill pull up the poll. Election day is over. We don't know the results yet, but how are you feeling? Are you Lemur A, who's a little freaked out and scared? Are you Lemur B? I'm over this. Lemur C, just glad it's done. Would like the results, but glad that it's done and the votes are in. And I am not a Lemur. I have 0 response. So Bill, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the poll, you can tell us which Lemur you are today, and we'll see so everyone can tell us how they're feeling today.
Did the poll launch?
I don't.
Well, I got a message that said it failed to launch, so there was some type of error. Let me try again.
I'll try. I got it. Can you see
got it?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great. Now we'll see it. Okay, the answers are coming in, and you may not even be on here. You might be somewhere that's not even on here, and that is okay too. All right, we've got 14 of 16 of you voted, so 20 seconds out, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling and share our results. So here's where we are today. Can y'all see this? Quite a few of you are freaked out, feeling a little bit anxious, and I understand that for sure. One of you is like, oh, gotcha. A lot of you are just relieved it's over. I think that's the majority of responses, but there's so many responses and all of them are correct. Some is like, I don't even know what to feel. I'm kind of numb. And the reason I put this out there, and this is all over the board, is anything that you're feeling, we've talked about this. Feelings are important. I'm going to stop these share results. They give us information and we have to acknowledge those and remember that we are human beings first. We're serving other human beings and we are not machines. We have to remember that for ourselves as well and acknowledge how we're feeling and be okay. Realize that, and before we can really be able to build our own resilience to serve others. So the first thing that I want us to do is engage something we've already done before, but it really is a way to reset our central nervous system. And it's one of the quickest, easiest, most underrated tools. You've heard me say that before that we have, but it's the breath. It helps us regulate our central nervous system. It helps us complete a stress cycle, especially if we're feeling stressful or stressed. And it's the one thing that we can do. And it really does. Remember, if we're breathing slowly, it tricks our body and our brain into feeling the way that we feel when we breathe slower, which is typically more relaxed. So let's do that today. You'll have all kinds of thoughts come up. Thoughts are just thoughts. We just acknowledge them. And then we return to the breath. So wherever you are, if you would like to close your eyes, please feel free to do so. If you want to keep them open, that is okay as well. But I invite you to just take a moment, and I'm going to lead us through 3 deep breaths where we're going to breathe in and then breathe out for longer. All right, go ahead if you feel like closing your eyes. I'll get us started. Here we go. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last breath, make it your deepest of the day. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When you're ready, come back to the webinar, come back to the present, come back to being here and giving as much of yourself as you can to today and what you are able to offer and to get from this presentation and on resilience. So thank you all for doing that with me. I always appreciate that and find it helpful for myself, even though I'm like, I don't even have time for that. I always find it helpful for myself. So thank you for doing that with me. Before we kick off with a quick review of what we did, if you weren't here or it's been a few weeks, identifying and addressing burnout. Remembering you are not alone. A lot of you identified that you were struggling, and it's helpful to acknowledge and normalize that struggling and that it's real, right? While you may differ in size, you are all facing unprecedented demands and stress that like you never have before. So it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to acknowledge that. And I hope that through this, you can connect with each other and continue to share what's been stressful, but what's also working for you. We've also talked about how stress, it's gonna come at us. It's a natural part of life. A lot of the stressors we think about and experience right now are negative, but some are positive, right? We can stress our body through a brisk walk, and that's a good thing, but that engages positive stress hormones. And when we engage those negative stressors, how we respond to it matters. But that's different than burnout, which is the complete depletion of energy, enthusiasm, and confidence. And when that's ongoing for a long time and those stressors haven't been dealt with, it leads to the burnout. We've identified through the nonprofit burnout assessment a way to see what our own levels of depletion are, what our passion levels are. Are we completely passion depleted? Is our passion waning? Is it challenged, or is it still there? And identifying where that is helps tell you how much you need to do to take care of yourself. We've identified some of the causes of burnout. A lot have to do in the workspace, particularly with our managers, which is something we'll address today. But unfair treatment, unmanageable workload, unclear communication, especially with managers, and a lack of support from your manager, as well as unreasonable time pressures. Not having too much to do, not enough time to do it, and people not understanding what you need to do. Those have all been identified as some of the big causes of burnout in the workplace, all exacerbated by current pandemic and other stressors. We've talked about individual and organizational strategies, and we'll continue to talk more about those today, as well as responding to those stressors, how to deal with them in our body. We came up with some ways we can do that last week, and a lot of you identified that you were going to recognize what was in your control and what was out of your control. And a lot of you identified that you were going to try to sleep more or try to do some physical activity to help get those stressors and complete that stress cycle of the emotion tunnel, beginning, middle, and end, to deal with it, the stress created in your body by those. And we'll talk more about this today, but building resilience, it's not about how you endure. It's not about how much more we just keep going, even though that tends to, for so many of us, be what we do. It's how we cope and it's how we feel better. But eventually, that's going to lead to depletion. And it is okay, absolutely okay, and not just okay, but necessary to recharge, to build sustainability for yourself and resilience for yourself and your organization. So those are some of the things that we have addressed in our first 2 webinars, and we'll dig a little bit deeper in the 2 webinars with me, as well as talked about in facilitated discussions with Bill. And we'll dig a little bit deeper into the resilience part today. One of the biggest things, and I've said this every time, is to remember it is okay. And in fact, better to give yourself grace and self-compassion than to beat yourself up for what you're not doing. It is better to ask yourself what is good for you than to beat yourself up for what you're not doing, because it allows you to sustain yourself. So keep giving yourself that self-compassion. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say, oh, I wish I'd done that differently. It's how you talk to your best friend. Sometimes the way you wouldn't talk to yourself, you would talk to yourself differently. You say much more mean things to yourself and expect much more things from yourself than you do from others. So remember to give yourself that compassion. So what I'd like to ask, and I'll put you in some breakout rooms, but I'd love to give you about 6 or 7 minutes to talk about what's been helpful about this series on burnout. And then what are you most hoping to get out of these last 2 sessions today on building resilience? And in next week's discussion with Bill, where he'll continue to talk with you about the stressors and silver linings during the pandemic and during this time. So I'm going to break you into breakout rooms with about 3 to 4 people per room and probably give you about 7 minutes. And here's how we're going to do it. If you're the person whose birthday is closest to the beginning of the year, so your birthday is January, you're probably going to be the facilitator in your room. As a facilitator, that just means get people to do quick introductions of themselves and then answer the questions. And then instead of putting things in the chat, I'm going to have you all try to type your responses into this Google Doc so we can see it live coming through, because you can't record in the chat in the breakout rooms. So I've put a link to the Google Doc in the chat. It's also right here if you want to copy and paste it. But if you click on the link in the chat, you should pull up the Google Doc. And as the facilitator, you get to find a volunteer who wants to type up some of your thoughts about what's been helpful about this series on burnout and building resilience and the facilitated conversations, and what are you most looking forward to getting out of these last 2 sessions. So hopefully everybody can get to those. Can everyone get to see the chat, or not the chat, but the Google Doc in the chat, and go ahead and pull it up. It should be set to sharing. And I'm going to put you in these breakout rooms. There's 5 breakout rooms with 3 to 4 people per room. So again, if you can't participate in the breakout room, go ahead and just type your thoughts on the chat under question number 1. Any questions before we move into the breakout rooms? No? Okay, I'm going to create these. And I think, I'm going to do a quick move here of someone, because I see there's 2 people, and I'm going to move one person to a room where I don't think you have access to a video or audio. I think we should be good now. If you have any questions, you can call for my help. But we'll have about 7 minutes, and with 1 minute left, there'll be a message to broadcast to wrap up, and start typing your thoughts up if you haven't already. Ready? I'm opening the room, so go ahead and join the breakout rooms. Hi, folks. I know people are trying to type up on the Google Doc. Thank you for doing that. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. I saw lots of typing going on the Google Doc. Did that work okay for folks? Yeah. One of the things I like about that is that then you don't have to come back and furiously type in the chat. And I've already got some, we can all see on here that it sounds like listening to other people who are going through the same thing has been helpful. Discussing, winter is coming, absolutely. Lots of people have mentioned that, trying to brainstorm around that. Getting some more ideas for positive ways to address burnout. I'm going to go through some of those today. We're going to get right into that. And then further getting to know other agencies. And I know Bill will help me with some of that in the coming weeks as well. Next week, sharing ideas, understanding how to deal with other people's pain, and not becoming numb to problems. That's something that we're all at risk of, is real, especially if we don't take care of our own selves and our own emotions and our own physical and mental well-being. We can absolutely become numb, and that's what leads to the burnout, right? So I really appreciate you all typing up these things and engaging and talking with each other in the breakout rooms. We'll have one more breakout room, and I'll keep you in the same rooms so you can continue to talk with each other. But I'm going to pull back up this and take us through a few more things today. So we're going to talk about that building resilience piece. We're going to talk about how do we deal with all the stressors coming at us? What do we do to stay strong and sustain ourselves? Because just telling ourselves to be strong works sometimes, but not all the time, right? And how do we encounter that suffering and learn to overcome it? Because there are things that we can do to help ourselves and others. So, resilience. What does this mean? I thought it might be helpful to just even share what resilience means. So there's lots of research on resilience, but when it comes down to it, and looking particularly at both people and organizations, resilient people and organizations possess 3 characteristics. They are an acceptance of reality, right? This is happening. Those stressors are coming. So, but not only are those coming and this reality is happening to it, but a mindset that we can deal with them. That's number 1. Number 2 is this ability to improvise and adapt, to get creative, to come up with solutions. That often involves community and getting involved with others and brainstorming ideas, but an ability to be adaptable, to flex, to say, you know what, this is not the same world we lived in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, even 2 months ago. So how do we continue to be adaptable and flex that adaptability muscle and engage that creativity, one of those things that we've talked about before? And then number 3, a deep belief in meaning and purpose. You'll see this in employee engagement literature. You'll see it in building resilience. You'll see it in building purpose in organization. It's all over. This is what gets people out of bed. This is what keeps people connected. This is what helps people get through hard times. It's what helps organizations get through hard times, is deep belief in meaning and purpose, that what we do matters. It matters to us. It matters to me as an individual. It matters to the people that we're serving. It's the why. It's your why of what you do. Okay, that is what resilient people have. That is what resilient organizations have. These 3 things. So this quote, and this is an article that's pretty old, but it's still cited because these are what still comes up when we look at resilient people in organizations. Resilient people in companies, they face reality with staunchness. They make meaning out of hardship instead of crying out in despair. I like to amend that and say they may cry out in despair and acknowledge that first, and then they make meaning out of it. And then they improvise solutions almost out of what seems like thin air. And those who are not resilient, they don't do those things. So another thing is this deep belief in meaning and purpose, is that what we do matters. What we do for others matters. And connecting what we do to a larger purpose in life helps us prevent burnout and build resilience. So how do we do that? How do the best leaders answer? What are we here for? During a crisis of deep ambiguity and uncertainty, what's more important than this sort of demonstration of certainty, pretending like we know the answers, pretending like we know things are going to be okay? That's not helpful, but formulation of a strong shared sense of meaning. We're in this together, and here's why it matters. They can't just impose this either from above. It helps if it starts from above, but they need to become activists who convene their people, employees, stakeholders, boards, customers, members of the communities and the companies, the organizations they serve, to explore and define that meaning together. Okay, this was actually, this is pretty well known, and also this is from an article that was just in Harvard Business Review in October 2020. But how do you do this in an organization? How can you pull these people together? How do you continue to to have that deep belief in what matters to you? How do you remind yourself out of that? How do you make meaning out of hardship? So here's what I want you to discuss. I want you to go back into those breakout rooms. I would love it if you could pull back up that Google Doc again, and I'll put it right here in the chat. So it's right there. You don't have to scroll back up, and answer this question in the Google Doc. But this time, if you're the person whose birthday is closest to the end of the year, so you're the December birthday, you get to be the facilitator this time and find a volunteer to either type responses, or you can do so. But how do you make meaning? What's your why, and how does your organization find and remember and share their meaning and purpose in their community and in their world? So, do we have any questions before we go back into these breakout rooms? And then I'll come back and talk about through some concrete strategies. But this is a strategy, and creating actionable items out of this strategy is what you're going to talk about. What do you do to remind yourself and remind your organization of this? You'll have, again, maybe 7-8 minutes. So here we go. You're in the same rooms. I'm going to open all rooms, and I'll let you know when there's about 1 minute left. Let me know if you have questions. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Again, I know it's never long enough, but I'm glad you got to connect with each other, and you'll have this Google Doc, and I encourage you to keep talking with each other and with your organization about your own personal why, to keep yourself going and your organization's reminder about that. And not just that, right, your mission, but really go beyond that. Why are you showing up every day now? Why does this really matter? How does every person in your organization connect to that? Why? Connect to that client? How does what they do matter? And that's one of the things that y'all can talk about together in your organizations that keeps people going. It's one of those things that helps build a deep, ongoing resilience, is knowing our why and knowing our organization's why. And I see you all talking about things like shared sense of mission and purpose because of the people, feeding people, right? It's important. Everyone deserves food, and there's such a high need right now for food assistance. It gives me a sense of being. That's what some of you are writing. I wanted to dedicate my time to serving others, which is rewarding. So keep thinking about this. This is the beginning of this conversation for yourself. If you aren't already thinking about it, if you are already thinking about this, it's taking it back to your organizations and having this conversation. I wanted to share with you a webinar participant from last fall. She said it was okay to share this. She sent this to Bill. One of the things that she said really struck out to me. Preventing burnout for me means doing creative things. Improvising solutions, right? Always looking for process improvement and ways to expand and add new programs to serve people better. We've added programs working closely with nearby schools during the pandemic using Sign Up Genius. I'm now looking for ways to grow those or keep them going. I always think having goals for what you want to accomplish next. The forward future thinking, that's something I'm going to mention in a minute. Bringing lots of prayer, finding that purpose, and watching what God does. Seeing how God opens the doors is fun, and that's what helps me overcome burnout. For her, that connection was watching what that meaning purpose was, connecting to God's purpose for her. Knowing there are people who rely on us every week. It's also that too, the reliance of others, and that what we do is incredibly valuable for those who we serve individually, but also for our community, the larger purpose. Also helps keep me from burning out. I thought this was just such an incredible response of resilience, incorporating all of those pieces of a deep connection to meaning and purpose, improvising solutions out of thin air, and really recognizing the reality when it happens. That I wanted to share this as a little bit of inspiration for you all. So what does that look like? What do you do? What do you do now? Some of you mentioned like you want some techniques. Here are some of the things that can help you build resilience at both an individual and organizational level, right? We mentioned last week, you yourself have control over certain things and certain things you don't. And focusing on those things you can control, those stressors that come to you, can help you. Remembering what's in your circle of concern that may bother you, but you can't necessarily affect those things all the time. So where do you as an individual have the ability to make change? So we'll talk about that. And I'll also address a little bit about, right, if you're the only sort of healthy person in a dysfunctional organization or an organization that's unhealthy, that's really, really hard. So at the systemic level, if you're able to make changes at the systemic level, that's huge. And it's not just, I mean, I will always encourage meditation and breathing, but just having those wellness programs isn't enough. It's a deeper belief and we're taking care of each other. And here's what it looks like to create this culture of well-being and resilience. And so the first I'll share with you are both individual and organizational strategies, things you can do at both levels. If you are a volunteer, if you are a staff member, these are things you can do. A couple things I'll share later. You may need to be at the manager level, but all of these are things right now that you can do. And some of them will sound familiar. Reignite that meaning and purpose. Remembering what's your why, taking that, what you wrote down, asking that question of yourself on a daily basis, asking your organization, what does it matter? And connecting everyone to that mission for themselves and the community. Number 2, this will also look somewhat familiar. Choosing our response. That's the difference. We pause. Right? And then we decide how we are going to react to those stressors. Some of these we talked about too. That ABC technique. Okay, this is the adverse event. This is the stressor. Here are the beliefs we have about what you can do to respond to it. And then I believe that I can affect the consequences. Taking a pause, thinking ABC. That can be number 1. And then taking that pause to breathe, to move through that tunnel of your emotions. Remember the beginning, middle, and end, to feel it in your body. Take a walk, take a breath, pause. You do not always have to react. Sometimes there are emergency situations that you do, but a lot of times you can pause and choose that response. And then this is one that we haven't talked about as much, but it's the mindset reset. Those who thrive and have resilience, they choose what's called this powerful giver response. And I share this with you because you all are givers. There's some work by a professor named Adam Grant, and he talks about give and take, and there are givers and takers, and you all know what I'm talking about. And you all, I know, are the givers. And when you choose, though, to be a giver, a powerful giver, by that means that you're giving of yourself, but that you're not a victim in the giving. You're choosing the power that you have to be the giver. That helps you reset your mindset. It also means that you're willing to put others' interests ahead of your own, but not to be a martyr. You believe you can make a difference, and that's why you do it. It's the powerful giver part of that I wanted to remind you all of, the powerful piece. You get to choose your response. You're choosing, and you're making this incredible choice every day, but don't forget to choose yourself too, because you have to sustain yourself. So, really, these are some techniques, ABC, using those techniques we talked about last time, move through the tunnel of emotion, remembering the powerful giver mindset. This is what will help you thrive. The thriver's mindset is the powerful giver. This is one we talked about last week. Not only does it help you move through the stress cycle, it helps you build resilience. Engage your creativity. Again, I'm not terrible at art, but I like to imagine myself as that backup dancer. And I love to brainstorm with my team and think about what we can do to make a difference, right? Creating that something out of nothing, that improvising solutions, taking your broken heart and turning it into art. And for you all, art is ideas and adapting and creating new solutions. You have to find the energy to do that. So making sure that you take time for yourself and energy to do that. This won't surprise you, but sharing struggles, listening with empathy. Remember, we talked about how some of y'all aren't talking about this. It's hard to talk about this, but it's important because as you've seen, other people are struggling, and sharing your own struggle, being vulnerable and responding to others with empathy. Having a shared language can be really helpful to do this. So that nonprofit assessment burnout tool that I gave you, that can be one, and you can talk about, oh gosh, my passion is waning. I'm good right now. I'm depleted on like an ongoing basis. You can have that shared language to get a sense of where other people are. Other people talk about, there's a researcher who's been talking about psychological fortitude. We might have heard of the term of mental fortitude, but this is really a woman who's talking about psychological fortitude on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being I am totally depleted. I have nothing left to give anyone. I can barely get out of bed myself. To 10 being like, I am on it. 9 to 10, like I'm mission driven. I'm on this. I can build resilience. I can engage all my strategies to help. If you're consistently finding that you or your team, if you're asking your team about this, saying on a scale of 0 to 10, what's our fortitude for resilience? What's our psychological fortitude? And you're constantly at a 3 to 4, that's rough. I mean, on a day-to-day, on an hour-to basis, sometimes I'm at like a 3, but then I'm at an 8, and then I sort of balance out to 7, 8, you know? But if day-to-day, hour-to-hour, you're finding you're at a 3 to 4, and you can share that with each other, that's where you need to stop and take care of each other some more, right? And responding with care and asking, what's that mean for each other? How do we help each other out so that others can take a break when they need it? But having that ability to talk with each other as you create your future together, right? This is a fortune cookie. I think these are always more funny than anything, but what is that future that you're creating together? Resilient people look forward. They look for solutions. They see a future where they've made a difference. What difference have you made? What has mattered to you? What do you want things to look like in a year or 2 years? Knowing that your plan has to be adaptable because we don't know what's going to happen. There's so much ambiguity. But what do you want it to look like, and what steps can you and your team take to make that happen? And for you as a person, right? So that's for you and your organization. If you're at an organizational level to make a difference, the organization where you want your people to be and where they want to be is one where those managers are trained. Remember all those causes of burnout I mentioned at the beginning? Those are, a lot of them are manager driven. Remember, 70% of employees' engagement, well-being is driven by managers. So those who have managers, and again, managers aren't perfect and that's okay, but training your managers to listen, to communicate effectively, to be flexible and adaptable, and to engage your employees, your volunteers, their strengths. That's another way of preventing burnout and developing resilience in your organization. So investing in those managers, if you're a manager, investing in yourself is a really important thing to do to build organizational resilience, because managers, frontline managers, are one of the biggest keys to employees' well-being. And then this one, this is won't surprise you, but I like the sort of the simplicity of the language of it. This demand control support model. This is a model that is focused on organizational stress and is really been engaged in helping people prevent burnout and build resilience, how to help people reduce their demand. You might not be able to reduce your demand that much, but how do you prioritize what gets done and who does it? And managing that electronic overload coming at you, that can create a lot. So a lot of you have created solutions that are electronic that will hopefully help you and not overwhelm you. Increasing employees or volunteers' control by showing them empathy, giving them the flexibility, writing down those unwritten rules that you've had during the pandemic. Like, it's okay to, if you need to come in a few minutes late or leave a few minutes early, like if that's been something that's helped your employees be adaptable, engaging their strengths and their autonomy throughout this is a big thing that can be really, really helpful to help employees develop a sense of, and volunteers too, not only meaning and purpose, but control over what they do. How are they using their strengths and contributing to that mission? So that's one of the things that training managers on is really helpful as well. But flexibility, figuring out where you can control, what you have to control as a manager, and what your employees can have control over so that they can contribute their best. And then providing formal and informal support, talking with each other about how things are going, right? Whether that's through, like, some of you have big organizations and you might have ability to have people talk to HR, but some of you have small organizations, and informal connections and mentoring are huge. You often want to stay at a place because of the people there. So creating that community matters. So demand control support model. These are the techniques that you can use. So I want you to, what I would love is if you want to document what you would like to do that you can try to prevent burnout at the individual or organizational level, whether it's something for yourself or something you can take back to your bank or pantry. I would love to see you just go ahead and type that in the Google Doc so that others can be inspired by what you're planning to do. So we're not going into breakout rooms. It's just pull up that Google Doc, type it in there either now or afterwards and share as an accountability for yourself or possibly to others. And then Bill, if you want to pull up this poll, or actually I can do it really quick. Which of these strategies, share with us. Is there a strategy that you'll try to use this week to choose your response? Can y'all see the poll? Yeah, okay, great. To share your struggles and listen openly. Will you try to forge your future together, focusing on what you can, being adaptable? Will you reignite purpose? Will you be able to think about how you might train your managers or engage a demand control support model? All right, I'm going to end the polling and share the results. It looks like several of you are going to try some different things, which is great. Different things work for different people, but these are the big things that we can do. And again, I didn't even mention like eating healthy and sleeping and resting, because those are just the given things that we know. And sometimes, you know, it's not that easy to do those things. So what are the little things that we can do day by day? And it looks like a lot of you are going to try to choose your response, share struggles, forge your future, reignite purpose. Thank you for sharing those with us. I want to encourage you, even though I didn't really mention it, to chillax if you have a chance. This is what my kids call it. And some of you asked if I was a cat person. This is my cat relaxing. So I thought you'd enjoy seeing a picture of that cat. And lest you think I'm not a dog person, our lifestyle supports cat more right now. I love dogs and I think they chillax really well too. So I wanted to give you that, plus looking at animals is cute and fun. So acknowledging what we have that's going on, and also what's challenging, but what we can do to persevere, what we can do to recharge. So I think it's 12:01. I'm so sorry to have gone over, but want to thank you all for everything, for what you've done, for how you've engaged, and encourage you to come back next week and talk with Bill.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who participated today. Great to have you and great to see you again. We will be closing out the series next Tuesday at 11, again with some discussion. Not much of an agenda, but likely 2 or 3 different guiding questions, and really encourage you all to be a part of that. So I'll send around a follow-up email to kind of share some links and things like that regarding Carrie's presentation. Also, be on the lookout in the near future for an evaluation survey for this workshop. So with the funding that comes from Missouri Foundation for Health, I need to report not only how many people attend, but also report on your impressions and your feedback from this series. So I'll be putting together a short survey and sending that your way in the near future. So with that, I do hope you have a good rest of your day, and we will talk soon.
Thank
Talk to
you
you later.
all. Take care, everyone.